Why does Keanu look at Sandra like he's afraid to lose her? People always ask why Keanu Reeves looks at Sandra Bullock with that quiet fear in his eyes, like he is holding a memory that still shakes him inside. But what no one knows is that their story began long before the cameras, long before the red carpets, long before the world decided to pair their names together like some magical dream. It began on a cold evening when Keanu thought he was about to lose something he didn't even know he needed. The hook begins here, in the first moments that pull the viewer close and whisper a question they must stay to answer. Keanu was standing backstage at a charity event in Los Angeles, fixing his black suit jacket with slow, thoughtful hands. He had that calm look he always carried, the one people called mysterious, but inside he was tired, lonely, and unsure of the world. He had spent years giving kindness to strangers, giving respect to everyone around him, keeping his heart soft even when life tried to break it. But sometimes kindness comes with a cost, and tonight he felt it heavy. The crowd outside was loud, waiting for him and Sandra to appear together for the first time in a long time. The world loved seeing them share a stage. They saw chemistry, humor, warmth. What they didn't see was the moment that still lived inside Keanu, the moment that made his chest tighten every time he looked at her. As he waited backstage, he heard the soft sound of her voice before he saw her. It was a gentle laugh, almost like she was trying to hide something behind it. Sandra walked toward him, wearing a simple black dress that made her look both strong and fragile. Her smile was warm, but her eyes held a shade of worry he couldn't ignore. "Hey," she said softly, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "You ready for this?" Keanu nodded, but didn't answer right away. He was watching her closely, searching her face the way people search for clues in old photographs. He had always been good at reading people, but when it came to her, everything became complicated. She stepped closer, lowering her voice even more. "You look tense. Is everything okay?" He took a slow breath. "Just thinking about that night," he whispered. Her smile faded. Her eyes lowered. She knew exactly which night he meant. The memory hit them both at the same time. It had been years ago, after a long shoot, when the two of them had gone for a late dinner near the harbor. They had laughed like two people who forgot they were famous, who forgot the world was always watching. But on the drive home, Sandra nearly got hit by a speeding car when she stepped off the sidewalk too quickly. Keanu had reached her in one fast movement, pulling her back by the arm, holding her so tightly she could feel his heartbeat racing against her own. He had looked at her then with the same fear he carried now, a fear of losing something precious, something he didn't know how to name. "I still remember the way you held on to me," she said now, her voice barely above a whisper. "It was the first time I saw you look scared." Keanu lowered his eyes, his voice deep and soft. "I don't like thinking about the moment I could have lost you." Sandra touched his hand gently, "But you didn't." He looked at their hands, then at her eyes, and something inside him shifted. He wasn't afraid of danger. He wasn't afraid of cameras, but he was afraid of losing this quiet, honest connection they shared, a connection that had stayed with him for years. The stage manager called their names. The lights waited. The crowd waited. Keanu took one more breath, and Sandra squeezed his hand. "Come on," she whispered. "We face the world together." And as they stepped into the light, Keanu looked at her with that same unspoken fear and unspoken love that always made people wonder. The moment the world didn't see. The applause hit them like a warm wave when Keanu and Sandra stepped onto the stage. The lights glowed softly around them, and the cameras flashed nonstop, capturing every smile, every glance, every small breath between them. To the world, it looked perfect. Two beloved stars standing side by side, joking gently, talking kindly, making everyone feel safe just by being themselves. But under that calm surface, something deeper was happening. The hook starts here. This is where viewers lean forward and wonder what secret moment changed everything. Keanu kept his hand close to Sandra's, not touching it, but almost. He felt the need to stay near her like some old instinct was waking up again. He glanced at her from time to time, watching the small movements in her face. She smiled, she waved, she answered questions, but there was a quiet tension behind her eyes, a worry she wasn't saying, and that made Keanu's heart beat a little faster. When the host asked them about their long friendship, Sandra laughed softly. "We've known each other for so many years," she said. "We've had our share of funny moments, scary moments, and moments the world never got to see." The audience cheered. They loved hearing that. But Keanu felt something twist inside him. Because there was one moment the world never saw, one that Sandra never spoke about, not even in interviews. And that moment was coming back to him in flashes. As Sandra talked, her hand accidentally brushed Keanu's arm. It was a small touch, barely noticeable, but it sent a warm shock through him. The host joked about their spark, and the crowd laughed. Sandra smiled shyly. Keanu looked away for a second, trying to breathe. Then, halfway through the event, Sandra leaned closer to him and whispered, "We need to talk later." His heartbeat changed. He didn't know if it was fear or hope or something in between. After the show ended, they walked backstage together. Sandra kept quiet until they reached a quiet hallway away from everyone. She stood still, holding her hands together like she was gathering courage. Keanu waited patiently. He always respected her space, always listened before speaking. That was part of who he was: kindness before pressure, patience before demand. Finally, Sandra looked up at him. "Do you ever think about that night?" she asked. His chest tightened all the time. She nodded slowly, like she had expected that answer but hoped for something else. "I didn't tell you everything," she whispered. Keanu froze. This was the moment that grabbed the viewers, the moment they couldn't look away from. "What do you mean?" he asked gently. Sandra looked around, then leaned closer, lowering her voice. "After you pulled me back from the car, after you held me like that, I wasn't just scared about the accident. I was scared because of something else." Keanu kept his breath steady. "Because of what?" Her voice broke a little. "Because I realized how much you mattered to me, and I didn't know what to do with that." The hallway felt smaller. The lights dimmed around them. For a moment, Keanu forgot to breathe. He had waited years to hear something like that. Yet now that it was here, he felt confused, overwhelmed, almost afraid. "Why are you telling me this now?" he asked quietly. She stepped even closer. "Because something happened recently, something that made me think about you again in a different way, and I don't want to hide it anymore." Keanu felt the heaviness of her words settle into his heart. He didn't know if he should speak or stay silent. She touched his arm softly. "I need to tell you what changed, but not here." He nodded slowly. "Okay, where do you want to go?" She gave him a small, sad smile. "Somewhere quiet, somewhere safe." And that was when he realized the truth. She wasn't just nervous. She was afraid. And whatever she was about to tell him was going to change everything. The secret Sandra carried. Keanu followed Sandra through the quiet corridors of the venue, moving away from the noise, the crowd, and the flashing lights. She walked quickly, almost like she was trying to outrun her own thoughts. He stayed a few steps behind her, giving her space but never letting her slip out of sight. He didn't know why, but something inside him told him not to let her walk alone. The hook begins here, pulling the viewer deeper, making them feel the tension in the air. When they reached the back exit, Sandra paused, took a long breath, and pushed open the heavy door. The cool night breeze touched their faces, and the world outside felt softer, quieter, almost like it was waiting for them to speak. They stepped into the small garden behind the building. Dim lights hung from the trees, and a low fountain whispered in the center. It was the kind of place where secrets felt heavy but safe. Sandra wrapped her arms around herself, staring at the stones beneath her feet. Keanu didn't rush her. He had always given people time to find their words. That was something she had always admired about him. Finally, she spoke. "I know I scared you a little backstage," she said softly. "I'm sorry." Keanu shook his head. "You don't have to be sorry, I just want to understand." She swallowed hard. I don't know how to explain this without sounding dramatic." "Try me," he said gently. She looked up at him then, and the sadness in her eyes hit him like a quiet punch. It wasn't the sadness of a bad day. It was the sadness of someone carrying something too heavy for too long. "Remember that night at the harbor," she said. "The night you saved me from the car." "Yes," Keanu replied instantly. "I remember everything about it." "I know you do," she smiled weakly. "But I think you only saw half of what happened." Keanu frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" Sandra took a shaky breath. "After you pulled me back, I walked away for a moment. I told you it was because I needed air, but that wasn't true." Keanu stayed silent, sensing that this was leading somewhere deep. She continued, her voice trembling. "I walked away because I had a panic attack, and it wasn't from the car. It was from realizing how close I came to losing the chance to tell you how I felt. Keanu blinked slowly. How you felt? Her eyes filled with tears that didn't fall. I liked you, Keanu, more than a friend, more than I ever said. It scared me. I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't ready for the idea that someone as gentle and humble as you could become so important to me. Keanu felt something warm and painful rise in his chest. He had wondered about this for years, but never dared to believe it. So why didn't you say anything? He whispered. Because I thought you didn't feel the same. Because life kept moving. Movies, work, time, everything kept shifting, and I pushed those feelings away. Keanu took a slow step toward her. So what changed now? Sandra wiped her hands on her dress, her fingers shaking. Something happened 2 weeks ago. Something that made me think about you, about us, about everything I never said. Keanu waited, calm but alert. Sandra finally met his eyes, and her voice dropped to a raw whisper. I got a letter, Keanu, a letter that scared me. His heart thudded. What kind of letter? A warning, she whispered. Someone told me to stay away from you. Keanu felt the air shift around them. It wasn't jealousy, it wasn't gossip, this felt darker. Why would someone say that? He asked quietly. She shook her head. I don't know, but the letter said you were in danger and that anyone close to you could get hurt. Keanu stepped closer, concern tightening his voice. Sandra, why didn't you tell me sooner? Her voice cracked. Because I thought it was nothing, but then something else happened last night. Keanu's pulse quickened. What happened? Sandra looked straight into his eyes. Someone was following me. And the garden suddenly felt colder than the night. Someone in the shadows. Keanu's breath paused when he heard Sandra's words. Someone was following her. The calm night garden suddenly felt darker, as if the shadows around them were listening. For a moment, neither of them moved. Even the fountain seemed to silence itself. The hook begins here, pulling the viewer deeper by raising danger and emotion at the same time. Keanu took a slow step toward her, his voice low and steady. Tell me everything, start from the beginning. Sandra looked around nervously, as if expecting someone to appear from behind a tree. Keanu noticed her fingers trembling, her shoulders tight, her breathing uneven. She wasn't just worried. She was scared in a way he had never seen before. It started 2 weeks ago, she said. I was leaving my studio late at night. It was quiet, almost too quiet. When I reached the parking lot, I felt someone watching me. You know that feeling, right? Like the air gets heavy and something inside your chest says run. Keanu nodded slowly. He understood that feeling more than most people knew. I looked around, she continued, and at first I thought it was just my imagination. But then I saw a man standing near the exit, just standing, not moving, not blinking. I couldn't see his face clearly because he was in the shadow of a streetlight, but he was tall, very tall. Keanu's jaw tightened slightly. Did he say anything? Did he approach you? She shook her head. No, but when I got into my car and locked the door, he turned his head toward me, not his body, just his head, like he was trying to memorize me. Keanu felt something sharp twist in his chest. It wasn't fear. It was protectiveness, something deep and instinctive. And then what? He asked. I drove away as fast as I could, she whispered. I didn't tell anyone because I thought maybe it was just a fan or a random person. But then, 3 days later, the letter came. She reached into her small purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Keanu didn't touch it yet. He stared at it, noticing the rough edges, the way it had been folded and unfolded many times. She had read it over and over. He could see the stress in her eyes. Sandra opened it slowly and handed it to him. The handwriting was uneven, almost shaky, like someone had written it in a hurry. The words were simple but chilling. Stay away from him. People who get close to him don't stay safe. Keanu felt the paper grow heavier in his hand. This wasn't a joke. It wasn't fandom. It was a warning, and the fear behind the words wasn't about Sandra, it was about him. Sandra, he said quietly, why would anyone think you're in danger because of me? Her eyes softened, filled with worry. Keanu, you're loved by so many people, admired, respected. But that also means there are people who watch you too closely, people who think they know you, people who create stories in their heads. Sometimes those people don't want others near you. He closed his eyes for a moment. He knew she was right. Fame wasn't always applause, it came with shadows too. She continued in a shaky voice. I tried to stay calm, I even tried to ignore it, but last night it got worse. Keanu opened his eyes. What happened? Sandra looked at him with fear she could no longer hide. I was coming home. It was around midnight, and when I reached my front gate, I saw the same man from the parking lot. He was standing across the street watching my house. Keanu's heart pounded hard, but he stayed steady. Did he follow you inside? No, she whispered. But he didn't move. Not even when I went into the house. Not even when I closed the door. It felt like he was waiting, like he wanted me to know he was there. Keanu stepped closer and gently held her shoulders, grounding her. You should have told me sooner. You don't have to deal with this alone. Her voice cracked as she whispered, I was scared. Not just of him, but of what you might think. I didn't want to bring danger into your life. Keanu shook his head slowly. Danger doesn't scare me. Losing people does. Sandra closed her eyes, her breath shaking. And in that quiet garden, with shadows watching from the corners, Keanu made a silent promise to himself. Whoever was following her, whoever sent that letter, whoever thought they could scare her away from him, he would find them. The truth in the dim light. The drive to Sandra's house was silent at first, but it wasn't the uncomfortable kind of silence. It was the kind that sits heavy in the air, filled with thoughts neither of them were ready to say out loud. Keanu kept both hands steady on the wheel, his eyes fixed on the road. Sandra sat beside him, staring out the window, her hands gripping each other tightly. The hook begins here, the tension rises, the danger feels closer. Keanu broke the silence gently. I'm going to help you, but I need you to tell me everything, even the parts you think don't matter. Sandra nodded slowly, still looking out at the passing streetlights. I just don't understand why someone would follow me, why send me a warning about you. What is happening, Keanu? He took a calm breath. He didn't want to scare her, but he couldn't lie. In this world, not everyone likes the idea of someone they admire getting close to someone else. Some people feel like they own you, and when you create a bond with someone, it makes them angry. Sandra's eyes softened. So you think this is about us? He glanced at her, a small ache in his chest. I don't know, but I'm not going to ignore it. They reached her house, a calm, quiet place surrounded by soft garden lights. The night breeze brushed through the trees, creating a gentle whisper. Normally it felt peaceful. Tonight it felt like something was hiding beneath the calm. Keanu parked the car and stepped out first, scanning the street. It was empty, but an emptiness that felt too perfect. Sandra followed him, staying close. You think he'll come back? She asked quietly. I don't know, Keanu replied, but if he does, he won't get close to you. They walked into her house. The door clicked shut behind them, and the world outside suddenly felt far away. The living room was softly lit, warm and familiar, but tension still hung in the air. Sandra put her purse down and took a slow breath. I haven't slept properly since that night. Every sound feels like a threat. Every shadow feels like him. Keanu turned toward her, his eyes gentle. You're safe now, I'm here. Those words hit her deeply. She looked at him with eyes filled with emotion she had been holding back for years. Keanu, I didn't just come to you tonight because of the letter, or because I was scared. I came because I trust you more than anyone. Keanu's breath caught for a moment. He had waited so long to hear something like that. Before he could respond, there was a soft sound outside. A crunch, like someone stepping on gravel. Sandra froze. Did you hear that? Keanu lifted a hand, signaling her to stay quiet. He moved slowly toward the window, his steps silent. He peeked through the blinds, his eyes sharp. At first, he saw nothing. Just the streetlight, the empty sidewalk, the soft sway of the trees. But then a shape. Someone was standing near the end of the driveway, not moving, watching the house. Keanu's pulse tightened. He's here. Sandra's breath shook. Are you sure? Keanu didn't take his eyes off the figure. Yes. The man didn't step forward, didn't step back. He simply stood there, almost blending into the night. Keanu slowly stepped away from the window and turned to Sandra. Go to the back room, lock the door, stay there. She grabbed his arm. What are you going to do? His voice was calm but strong. I'm going to talk to him. Fear flashed across her face. Keanu, no, what if he's dangerous? He placed a gentle hand on her cheek, his touch steady. I am not afraid of danger. I am afraid of what happens to you if I do nothing. Her eyes filled with tears. Please be careful. Keanu nodded once, then walked toward the front door. He unlocked it slowly. He stepped outside alone, and the night seemed to hold its breath. The night everything changed. The door closed behind Keanu with a soft click, and for a moment the world felt completely still. No cars, no voices, no wind, only silence, the kind of silence that comes before something big happens. The hook begins here. This is the moment viewers cannot look away. Keanu stepped down the small path leading to the driveway. His eyes stayed locked on the figure standing near the streetlight. The man didn't move, didn't speak, didn't flinch. He just watched Keanu with a stillness that felt wrong, almost unnatural. Keanu stopped a few feet away, keeping his voice calm and steady. "Why are you following her?" No answer. His jaw tightened. "If you have something to say it to me, not to her." The man tilted his head slightly, like he was studying Keanu's face. Finally, in a low, cracked voice, he whispered, "I was trying to protect you." Keanu frowned. That was not the answer he expected. Protect me from what? The man took a slow step closer, but stayed in the shadow of the streetlight, his features still hidden. From people who pretend to care, people who get close to you for the wrong reasons. Keanu kept his voice controlled. Sandra is not one of those people. The man let out a strange, shaky breath. "You don't understand. She changes things. She makes the world notice you more. She makes you vulnerable. People like her, they distract you." Keanu's heart tightened with anger, but he didn't raise his voice. "You don't get to decide who I trust." The man finally stepped forward into the light, and Keanu finally saw his face. He wasn't a monster. He wasn't a criminal. He looked like an ordinary man, tired eyes, messy hair, a face worn from stress and obsession. But his eyes told a different story. They were filled with something twisted, something broken. The man whispered, "I wrote the letter. I wanted her to back away. I needed her to back away." Keanu felt the weight of the truth settle heavily in the air. "Why her?" "Because she mattered to you," the man said. "And people who matter to you get hurt. I've seen it. I've watched your life. I've watched every loss you've faced. I didn't want another one." Keanu's voice softened. "You don't know anything about her or about me." The man's hands shook. "I know enough, and I needed to keep her away before things ended badly. You don't see it, but I've been watching. I know patterns. I know danger." Keanu stepped closer, slow and careful. "You need help, real help. This isn't the way." The man's breath grew uneven. "I didn't want to hurt her. I wasn't going to. I just needed her to disappear from your life before she caused pain." Keanu shook his head gently. "She's not the danger, you are." The man blinked rapidly, confusion filling his face. Then, like a switch flipping, his expression shifted into fear, real fear. He stepped back. "I never wanted to scare her, I swear. I only wanted to protect you." Keanu reached out a hand, calm but firm. "Come with me, we'll get you help. You don't have to do this anymore." For a moment, the man seemed to consider it. His breathing slowed, his shoulders loosened. But then, a voice came from behind Keanu. "Keanu." Sandra. She had opened the door just a little, maybe only wanting to check he was okay. But her voice carried across the driveway, sharp with fear. The man's eyes widened. Panic rushed through him. "No," he whispered. "She'll ruin everything." Keanu turned quickly. "Don't come outside." But she had already stepped out onto the porch. The man stumbled backward, shaking his head over and over. "This is what I tried to stop. This, exactly this." Keanu moved toward him carefully. "Please, don't do anything, just talk to me." The man's hands trembled violently. Then he whispered, "I'm sorry." And he ran. Not toward them. Away. Down the street, into the dark. Keanu started to chase him, but Sandra grabbed his arm, her voice breaking. "Keanu, please don't leave me alone." He stopped instantly. The danger was gone, for now. The man disappeared into the night like a shadow slipping out of sight, but the fear he left behind lingered in the air like a cold echo. Keanu turned, wrapped his arms gently around Sandra, and held her close as she trembled. "You're safe," he whispered. "I'm here." She pressed her forehead to his chest. "Please don't scare me like that again." He held her tighter. "I'm not going anywhere." And for the first time in years, as he stood with her in the quiet night, Keanu understood why he always looked at Sandra with that mix of fear and tenderness. It wasn't fear of danger. It was fear of a world without her. Fear of losing the one person who made him feel human again. Fear of losing something he wasn't ready to name. The kind of fear that only comes from love.